This is an old recipe of my grandmother's that she called taco pie or taco casserole. It's simple and it's easy, and you can make it in less than an hour. I hope you like it. Here's some of the things that you will need. First, we'll start with our 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once the oil's heated, we can add in our ground turkey. I prefer ground turkey because it's healthier, but ground beef works just as well with this recipe. Now it's time to add our onion, a little green onion, some garlic, and some salt. I'm going to sprinkle in about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. A half a teaspoon of chili powder. A half a teaspoon of cumin. One-fourth of a teaspoon of white pepper. 1/2 of a teaspoon of rosemary. 1/2 of a teaspoon of paprika. 1/2 of a teaspoon of garlic. And a little onion powder, about 1/2 of a teaspoon. And then we add our favorite, which is Mrs. Dash. I only use the garlic and herb because it has no MSG. So we're giving it a really good stir, and now we're just gonna cook it on about medium-high heat for about 10-15 minutes until the meat has been thoroughly cooked. Ground turkey doesn't seem to separate as easily as ground beef, so you have to stir it really well to make sure that you separate the pieces so it can get cooked as through as possible. Now we'll add our cup of tomato sauce and stir it in good, and then we'll let that simmer for about 10 minutes. After a few minutes of simmering, I add 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. This serves to thicken the sauce so that it's not so watery, and this will help your bread mix to be able to bake easier. So now for the fun stuff, we're going to add our southwestern corn mix to our meat and sauce. Green Giant is known to have gluten-free corn products, and this was one that was on a list that I found online. Okay, so we're going to set our temperature to low, cover the pan, and let it simmer while we make our baking mix. So for our baking mix, today I'm using the Bob's Red Mill gluten-free biscuit and baking mix. We're going to use 2.5 cups of that. And we're going to use a half a teaspoon of salt. It's a lot of salt, but that's a lot of flour. Then we'll add about a half a teaspoon of onion powder. Another half a teaspoon of garlic powder. A little bit of white pepper, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. A half a teaspoon of paprika. And we're going to add some rosemary and some dill weed, a half a teaspoon of each. We're going to add a half a teaspoon of baking powder and also a half a teaspoon of baking soda. And we're going to add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of stevia to even out the flavor, and then we mix it up good. I like to add all of these dry ingredients to my dry baking mix because a lot of the gluten-free mixes tend to have a aftertaste of some sort. So this kind of helps add to the flavor, make it taste better, and cut down on the aftertaste. Okay, so it's mixed really well. So now we're going to add about a stick and a half of salted melted butter. I guess I didn't nuke it enough the first time. Gotta melt it some more. So now that the butter's all melted, we're gonna mix it until it gets to a crumbly consistency. Now we'll add 1 whole egg, and about a cup of unsweetened almond milk. This is going to be very thick, so we got to give it a really good mixing. Okay, so our meat has simmered, our baking mix is ready, so now we're going to scoop it into our pan. I'm using an 11 by 13 size glass pan. And once we got the meat mixture in the pan, then we'll add about 3 tablespoons or so of plain yogurt. That'll be our substitute for sour cream. And then we can mix it in really good. Now grandma didn't do this, but I like to add this. Sprinkle on a little bit of spinach on the top just to make it healthy. Now we're going to take scoopfuls of our baking mix, and we're gonna put it on the top and smooth it over the meat mixture and the spinach. We're gonna cook it in the oven for about 40 minutes on about 350 degrees. So our delicious taco pie is done, and you can serve it with a little more vegetables or with some brown rice or some noodles, whatever you like. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I'll see you next time.